girl, and 2021 has kind of gotten out of hand for me. And when I say it's gotten out of hand, I mean I have added way too many comics to my comic book pull list, and that is why we are here. So, fun fact, as you guys know, I have a channel where I talk about comics. I also have a show that I do weekly with my lovely partner Jen every Sunday called Casually Comics. So I feel like I am living that comic book life 24/7, 365. I mean, I was doing it before, but I am definitely doing it more so now than ever, and that has caused me to put quite a few things on my pull list. I mean, it means I'm reading more comics too. And in reading more comics, I am putting a lot more things on my pull list. When I say that I am getting out of hand, this is what I mean when I say that I am getting out of hand. You are looking at 19 books added to my pull list, and there are already 3 more on the way that I'm not even going to talk about today. But I need help. Please help me. So, I know that I did just do a comic book pull list video about like 2 or so months ago, but when I say that this list has drastically changed, I mean it has drastically changed. So let's stop talking and making excuses. Let's get into the comic books. This is everything that is on my comic book pull list. Now, I'm going to do things a little bit differently because I got 2 stacks here. One stack we've kind of already talked about, so I'm going to do rapid fire talks about these books here, and then these are all the lovely new books that you guys haven't seen yet. So we're going to be spending a little bit more time talking about these books, but that means that I love all of my comic book children the same. It's just, we can't be here for 3 hours, and I feel like if I talked about everything in depth, we'll be here for 3 hours. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about these books, but if you want to see more on what I think about these lovely titles, there is another video on my channel where I talk about these books on my comic book pull list. So if you haven't seen that video, why don't you go and check it out? I'll leave a link in the description below. Look at me being all fancy and referring to old videos like a normal YouTuber should. So, rapid fire comic book reviews, let's do this. The Autumnal. This is a book by Volt Comics. It is very creepy, very wonderful. It has that Silent Hill vibe. It's about a mother and her young daughter that go back to her childhood home and her childhood town and find out that there's some creepy shit going on involved. I really, really like this book. I want to read through it. I can't wait until it's all done and all over with because I really want to sit down and see what the hell is going on because I'm sure there's a lot that I am missing. Star Wars Darth Vader from Marvel Comics. You guys know I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Listen, I am the Star Wars girl. Right next to that comic girl. I love Darth Vader. I love Anakin Skywalker. This book makes me an ooey gooey mess and makes me feel things. Although I will say, I'm kind of falling out of love with this book because they're kind of tying into Rise of Skywalker, and I don't like Rise of Skywalker. And why are we going to Exegol? Why is Exegol even a thing? But I still love Leather Daddy Darth Vader. So, Black Widow by Kelly Thompson and Elena Casagrande. I still can't believe that I have a Black Widow title on my pull list. Not only that, but this is probably one of my favorite books that I read each and every month. This is a really, really good book. It ties into Natasha's past. It gives her a family. It makes me feel things between her, Bucky, and Clint. And I like this book and the artwork's nice. So if you like Joelle Jones as Catwoman, you should probably be reading this book. Die by Kieran Gillian and Stephanie Hans. Listen, I am really falling out of love with Die. Don't know why it's still on my pull list. However, it is finally ending at issue 20, which is ironic because we are ending on a solid D20. Don't know how he's going to wrap it up in 5 or 4 issues or whatever we have left, but I am ready for Die to die. Crossover. This is a Donny Cates title from Image Comics. I am constantly going back and forth about how I feel about crossover. Sometimes I think it's neat, sometimes I think it's convoluted, but I really, really like seeing God Country pop up in this book, and I really, really like seeing the really cool advertisements for God Country, and I really hope that we continue to see that with Donny Cates' other books like Redneck and what else. I don't know. It's kind of cool. I feel like you would love this book more if you were a giant comic book fan like me versus just a casual fan. Strange Adventures by Tom King. Listen, I have not read this book in like 4 or 5 issues. I don't know why it's on my pull list other than the fact that I am a Tom King shill. I feel like at this point I'm just waiting for the series to end so I can read it all in one go because that's how Tom King writes best, y'all. Speaking of books that I haven't touched in a long, long time, this is Catwoman here. I really need to catch up on Catwoman because Ram V is writing Catwoman, and I really, really, really enjoyed Future State Catwoman, which is written by Ram V. So, Yeah, I really need to play catch up with this one, but the covers are really cute, so that's why I keep buying it. 7 Secrets by Tom Taylor and Daniel Diacolo, published by Boom Studios. This is probably my favorite thing on my pull list, even though it is on hiatus right now, which is okay because that means it's a perfect time for you to catch up. But when I tell you that I love a book as much as Saga, this is that book. I really love this book. I love all the characters. I love all the wacky stuff that goes on with it, and art is really great. Read 7 Secrets, y'all. And the last book for our rapid fire comic wrap-up thing before we get into all of the other wonderful books, that is We Live, published by Aftershock Comics. This is a really great post-apocalyptic story that has a twist that I did not see coming. Like 7 Secrets, this one is on break until about April or May, so it's a perfect time for you to catch up. And when I say that there is a twist that I did not see coming, but I am really enjoying and sets itself up for a massive world that could expand the way that Black Hammer did, that's this book. So if you like post-apocalyptic stuff, if you like really cute stuff that is going to break your heart in the process, We Live is going to be the book for you. So that is my rapid fire comic book list. We probably clocked in there at about like 10 minutes or so, but I tried to do it as fast as I could. Let's get into all of the new and wonderful stuff, because as you can see here, there is a lot to talk about. So now let's get into the real comic book pool list. I said it in my last comic book pool list video that Aftershock Comics is probably on par with Image Comics right now in terms of the content that they are putting out. I mean, Image Comics, if I'm being honest with you, isn't that great right now. They've been putting out some massive stinkers, but Aftershock Comics is coming up for them, and that continues with Nuclear Family. Nuclear Family is absolutely batshit crazy, and I love it. That being said, it's a really simple premise. So it's a family in the 1950s that, you know, are a little bit crazy and kind of believe that a nuclear fallout is going to happen. And so, unlike the rest of their neighbors, they have spent time preparing for an inevitable nuclear fallout. And when a nuclear fallout hits, they're the only ones that are prepared and ready to go. I really like this one. I've said it before, I am a sucker for post-apocalyptic books. That is my favorite genre. However, when you throw in that razzle-dazzle of like the Fallout games, I'm really intrigued. And I feel like this book could have ended on just a note of, okay, it's a nuclear fallout and now this family has to survive. However, they're throwing in the element of communists into it, which is honestly a perfect thing when we think about the 1950s and we start to think about the Cold War. And I'm just really intrigued where this book is going to go. I loved this first issue. It really did drag me in. It did a really nice job setting up the family and kind of making us attach to them. So I am both excited and very nervous for what is to come. Something that I have noticed with Aftershock's first issues too is that they tend to do these really fun info guides in the back. So when We Live, we saw something very similar. And in this one, we see something where it tells you what to do in case of a nuclear attack. And I just absolutely love these instructions. Step 1, remain calm. Step 2, make yourself small to appear less threatening. Step 6, comfort the dying. I feel like I could follow these rules. Stray Dogs from Image Comics immediately went onto my pool list. Like, listen, this was probably one of the books, aside from our other title on here, that I was most excited about for 2021. And let me tell you, when I say that Stray Dogs did not disappoint, where do I even start with how amazing this book is? Stray Dogs is basically like a Don Bluth movie come to life in form of a comic book. So it has this very magical Disney-esque 90s sort of art style that as a 90s kid, I really adore. When I say that I have read this book like 4 or 5 times in its first issue alone, I have read the book this much. So it follows the tale of this little dog named Sophie, and Sophie has found herself in a really strange place. She finds herself in a strange home with no memory of how she got there, and she finds herself among like 10 other dogs. And it starts to turn into this really weird crime psychological thriller as Sophie starts to put things together with intermittent memory loss, because did you know that dogs have short-term memory? I did not know that. But due to this short-term memory loss, Sophie is struggling to put the pieces together of how she's gotten here, and things start to get a little dark. I won't spoil it because I do think that the first issue really does lend itself to a great surprise. However, Stray Dogs is just this beautiful balance of creepy and cute, and I really enjoy that. I feel like this is something that we don't see from comics or from media at all. So I think this is going to lend itself to a really great story, because Stray Dogs is only a 6-issue miniseries or so, So I think it's going to lend itself to a really great read for casual readers and for those people that just don't want to make a commitment into a longer story. This is going to be one of those books where it's going to be one trade, one and done, and that's it. And I really like stories like that. So I realized when compiling this list that I have 3 Volt comic titles on my pull list, with one on the way thanks to a very special previews issue that I got to read, and I immediately added it to my pull list, but more on that later. However, when I say that I Walk with Monsters is a book that I did not expect to be as good as it is, it's just that. It's that good. It's that satisfying and that creepy. When I say that this is what I wanted Department of Truth to be, minus the conspiracy theories, this is what I wanted Department of Truth to be. So it follows this young girl and her older companion as they're kind of going along on this mystery sort of psycho thriller as they are trying to find the person who helped murder or kidnap her brother. And then we kind of get to see into her dark, troubled past with her father not being the greatest father. We kind of get a look into her companion's past, where her companion isn't the most nice person in the world either, and he turns into this like weird sort of monster wolf type creature, but he also acts as her humble guardian and is willing to go through the stuff so that way she doesn't have to suffer through the pain and horrors of murder and hardship and all this. This book reminds me of The Last of Us and the feelings that The Last of Us gave me. It makes me wish that The Last of Us 2 was a little bit better. But I really like this book. I think this book lends itself to a really unique and capturing style. It's such a fun tale, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go. It always leaves me with these sort of cliffhangers that makes me think I know what I'm doing, but then I have no idea what I'm doing. And then issue 3 comes by, and I'm like, oh my god, I did not expect that. Volt Comics continues to kill it into 2020-21, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But Volt Comics, listen, best publisher. Best publisher ever. And a book like Hollow Heart is exactly why Volt Comics is the absolute best publisher ever. When I say that this right here, this single solo book, was the book that I most anticipated in 2021, and then when it managed to stick that landing, oh boy, did it make me feel things. Hold on to your butts, because I'm getting ready to gush, because this book is something special. First of all, Hollow Heart is a queer monster romance story. You heard that right. Queer monster romance story. I have not gotten a book like this since Insects with Aftershock Comics, which, by the way, if you have not read Insects, this is your homework to go and read Insects, because it is one of the queerest, most monstrous books that I have ever read in my entire life, and it honestly defined who I am today. Hollow Heart follows the story of Elle, who is basically this jumble of organs inside this exosuit. And Elle, listen, Elle's going through some shit. Elle doesn't want to live anymore. Elle is constantly trying to find ways that he can end his life and end his suffering. And listen, I get that. I resonate with that. And it really hits home, especially with the way that some of the story is presented to us. But then Elle meets Mateo, and Mateo is this engineer who is there to comfort Elle and to sort of help Elle, and he promises to help Elle escape. I can't wait to see where this comic goes. I know that this book is going to honestly break my heart, but at the same time, it's going to have this very overwhelming, wholesome feeling to it that I can't wait, even if it means getting through that hardship before getting to the happy ending on the other side. I want more books like this. Like, listen, queer romance and characters that aren't defined by their queerness but just happen to be queer. I feel like I always talk about it on this channel, where I love all queer comic books. Okay, not all, because I've read some stinkers. But I love queer comic books. And I hate when queer comics seem to suffer through this trope of every queer story has to be about finding yourself and accepting your queerness and others accepting your queerness. I just want a book where 2 characters can be queer, and that's the end of it. That's it. They're just people. And I feel like that's what Hollow Heart is going to do. And it's just really, really refreshing to see that, and especially to see it come from my favorite publisher. I'm just so thankful that we have a book like this on the market, and I only hope that the success of Hollow Heart, because this book has gone to 2 printings already upon filming this video, I'm only hoping that it means that we'll get more books like this. Homesick Pilots is a book that is on my pull list. But if I'm being quite honest with you, I'm not really sure why it is on my pull list at this point. Now, I know that sounds really, really bad, and I'm not saying that this is a bad book. I just feel like this for me is going to be a better trade read than it is in single issues. I don't know if it's my dumb baby goldfish brain that I'm not understanding this story, or if it's too complex for me month to month, whereas if it was just in one big trade, I would understand it better. But that is how I feel about Homesick Pilots. However, I know a lot of people like Homesick Pilots, including my co-host Jen, because Homesick Pilots is this really cool punk ghost story, battle of the bands type thing, and I do think that that is really, really neat. So it's basically this monster house that absorbs a girl, and then her friends go into the monster house trying to look for her, and then the monster house, I guess, turns into a giant robot or something like that. Like I said, I don't really know what's going on with this book. What I do know about this book is that it is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not going to try to pronounce the artist's name because I know that if I tried, I'm just going to end up butchering it, and I don't feel like doing that today. However, when I say that Kaspar's art, because that's what I'm going to call him, we're just going to call him Caspar. We're going to act like we're buddies and we're friends. His art is probably some of the most beautiful work on the market right now. It's right up there with books like We Only Find Them When We're Dead. This is an absolutely gorgeous book. I love the color palettes that are in this book. I love these vibrant neon colors that we get from this book, and it really does lend itself to a beautiful and wonderful style that is unlike anything we've seen on the market. I think if you do like some of these more punky books, like a lot of the Black Mass titles in particular, I think that you'll really like Homesick Pilots. I also think if you've ever read Terminal Punks by Mad Cave Studios, one of my other favorite publishers, that you'll also really, really like this book. But I think for me, I just need to trade read it, but these covers are just absolutely gorgeous. So I've only got 2 more issues left until the first arc is wrapped up. I already have 3 of the issues, so I guess it's just here to stay. Another title from Image Comics. This is Ha Ha. This is a horror anthology series written by W. Maxwell Prince, which you may recognize from another horror anthology called The Ice Cream Man. I have read both Ice Cream Man and Ha Ha. I actually really like Ha Ha more than I like Ice Cream Man. A, because it is a nice condensed series. It is only about 6 issues or so, and I really like that fact. But Ha Ha, unlike Ice Cream Man, tends to lead itself to a little bit more, and I don't know what this says about me, but depressing elements, and elements that I can engage and resonate with. Ha Ha follows a bunch of clowns in different roles. The first issue, we saw your normal carny clown after he loses his job, and then he gets himself involved in a bank robbery, and things happen where he's not okay in the end of it. Issue 2 lends itself to another clown-esque character, if you will, but it's a mom and her young daughter, and the mom kind of has some mental illness going on, and so she basically abducts her daughter, and they go to this Funville where they think that everything will be okay, and in doing so, the mom has to lend herself to doing some sex work, and that leads into trouble with her and her young daughter, and then by the time they get to Funville, they find out that Funville doesn't exist. I don't know. I just like reading this creepy, depressing story. I feel like I read a lot of happy stuff. Maybe not happy stuff, but I don't read any depressing stuff. So I feel like this is a palate cleanser, but in the negative type. Does that make any sense? No? Okay, moving on. I don't know. I just really, really enjoy Ha Ha at this point. It's one of the books that I look forward to each and every month. And like I said, with it only being about 6 issues, I like that it's very contained into a limited series. And I think it's going to make for a really great trade read. And also, too, another great book for casual readers because every single issue is its own separate story. I love anthology stories, and I feel like all horror stories should be anthology stories because then they don't overstay their welcome. Fun tip of the day. I was so excited for this next book. But when I say that it is lending itself to be a huge disappointment, yet it is still on my pull list, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. I am unfortunately talking about Batman Catwoman from my boy Tom King and Clayman. I wanted more from this series. So y'all know, listen, if you saw my last video, you saw how big of a Tom King stan I really am. I will fight people on the side of the street if they tarnish his Batman and they say that it is a bad book. However, I don't know what's going on with this story. So Batman and Catwoman is supposed to kind of be this, like, what Tom King wanted to be, because from my understanding, Tom King wanted to do 100 issues. DC Comics only let him do 75. So he's kind of supplementing it with a 12-issue maxi series featuring Batman and Catwoman. And I was so excited about this because I wanted all the romance. Tom King writes wonderful romance, and it was my favorite part about his Batman run. And we get a little bit of romance here and there, but if I'm being quite honest with you, Batman Catwoman is kind of a convoluted mess. We get all sorts of timelines going on. There's some weird timeline with the Joker. There's some weird timeline with old Selina, and she kills the Joker, which I really, really enjoy. We're throwing Helena Wayne into the mix now, and she's becoming Huntress. We also have this really weird art style from Clay Mann. And listen, I liked Clay Mann's art style on some of the Batman work that he did with Tom King. But for some reason right now, it feels overly sexualized, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable in certain situations. That being said, this book is still on my pull list, and I am still going to continue to read it because I am a Tom King stan. And while I agree that this may read better in a compiled trade format, I'm going to continue to punish myself because I've been waiting forever for a Batman Catwoman book. I just want more romance. Luna is a miniseries from Maria Lovett, who recently did Faithless with my favorite person in comics, Brian Azzarello. If you know me, Brian Azzarello is not my favorite person in comics. That was just a joke. Brian Azzarello is horrible and should not write women, and that's my hot take on the internet today. But we're not here to talk about Brian Azzarello and his crappy series Faithless that had wonderful art by Maria Lovett, who also does Luna. We're here to talk about Luna. So Luna is like this weird psychedelic adventure with sex and drugs and demons, and it's kind of rad, and I really like it. Maria Lovett's artwork lends itself to this unique European style, which I absolutely adore. It doesn't feel like anything in comics right now, and she really is this up-and-coming rising artist and comic book artist. We see her on a bunch of series right now, so we saw her on Faithless. We've seen her on her own series, Heart Attack. We're now seeing her in Luna, and then we have a new series coming from her, and that is Eris and Psyche from Ablaze Comics, and that comes in March next month, or this month, depending on when I edit and finish this video. It's probably going to be March, let's be honest. But I really like this one. It kind of makes me wish that this is what Faithless was. It lends itself to a very, very similar and engaging story where, you know, things are kind of raw and dirty and passionate, but there's this engaging mystery where I just kind of want to see where it's going. Not only that, but the fact that it is 4 issues makes me think that, you know, there's a reason why it's on my pull list, because it's nice and short and sweet, and then I can just kind of enjoy it and move on to the next thing. But if I'm being honest with you, it is that handsome, gorgeous mystery man character on the last page of Luna #1. That is the whole reason why I am reading this book, let's be honest, because I don't know who he is, and I don't know anything about him, but I think I love him. I love him a whole lot. This book, I actually just added this onto my pull list this weekend, and I continue to be embarrassed by it because if you watch my Sunday show with Jen, we trashed the first issue so hard because we thought that it was so ugly. However, after reading the first issue and then deciding, hey, I'm going to pick up the second issue, I think that this might be one of my favorite comics I've ever read. Please don't judge a book by its terrible, crappy art, because sometimes it might have terrible, crappy art for a reason. Also, I'm sorry that I just called your art crappy. That's rude, and I shouldn't call it that. But Crimson Flower by Dark Horse Comics is a miniseries that I am absolutely head over heels in love with right now. So Crimson Flower follows the story of this young woman who has some mental health issues and is kind of on the rampage of finding, tracking down, and killing the people that she believes murdered her father. So as a young girl, she witnessed a horrible murder of her father, and now it has kind of scarred her for life, and she's now on her way tracking down and hunting down these people, you know, that she believes did it. We don't really know if they've done it, but she is doing some really horrible things, you know, in the sake of revenge, which is completely understandable. Like, listen, if somebody came through and murdered my dad, I think I would go on a rampage too. What I really, really like about Crimson Flower, other than the fact that it has a really big play on mental health issues, because this book really does kind of remind me of Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight a little bit. We see this really weird art style, which kind of lends itself to Russian folklore, and I feel like that is a heavy play on this book, is Russian folklore, because it drags back into the stories that her father told her as a young girl. And I think it's really interesting that when we see this young girl doing things that aren't the best, and that are, she's murdering people, for lack of a better word, or she is actually murdering people, but when she is out murdering people, she sees herself as the hero, and she kind of transforms into this fairy tale heroine, you know, and this princess, if you will, where she's the knight in shining armor and she's doing the right thing. But I feel like by the end of the book, we're going to realize that what she's done isn't anything to write home to, and I just think that it's really, really interesting. The fact that I rode this book so hard and kind of trashed it as hard as I did, and now that I love it as much as I do, that's comics. That is comics, guys. But Crimson Flower, I feel like it's a book that's going to miss a lot of people's radar. And with it only being about 4 issues, I think it's definitely worth picking it up in single issues, because right now the single issues are only priced at $3.99, and the trade is going to be priced at like $20 or $25. So you're definitely getting your money's worth by picking up the single issues. And there are some absolutely gorgeous covers along with it. So Crimson Flower, if there's one book that you want to pick up from this list, it should probably be that one, because I can tell you right now, nobody's going to be talking about it. So this last book on my pull list is a really important and special book. I picked this book up on a whim, and if you told me that this book is one of the most important pieces of queer media that I have ever consumed in my entire life, it doesn't matter if it is a movie or a song or a TV show, a comic book, you name it, this book is going to go down as one of the most important pieces of queer fiction in history. Surprisingly enough, I am talking about Barbalian Red Planet, which is a spin-off title from the world of Black Hammer, co-created or created by Jeff Lemire. I love the Black Hammer series. I've talked about the Black Hammer series a couple times on this channel right now. So Black Hammer, if you don't know, is this new series and new world created by Jeff Lemire, where it is a superhero universe, ironically, and it is his own take on the superhero genre. So we see him take a lot of inspiration from superheroes that are pre-existing. We see Golden Gale, who is obviously a play off of Shazam. We see Barbalian himself, who is obviously also a play of Martian Manhunter. But Barbalian, what makes him so special, at least to me, is in the Black Hammer universe, he is presented as queer. And we see him go through some stuff in the Black Hammer mainline series involving his queerness, and he faces rejection, and then he faces acceptance. And there was something about that that made him my favorite Black Hammer character. So seeing that Barbalian would be getting a series himself, I did not expect it to be queer as literal fuck. But for that, I am glad. Barbalian Red Planet is literally Barbalian coming to Earth after being, you know, kind of rejected from his homeworld. He's kind of settling into Earth. He's this cop. However, as we've seen in the mainline Black Hammer series, he's been rejected by his partner and is kind of deemed as this nasty queer person, because this book is set in the 80s. However, then he starts to find himself falling in love, and he finds himself heavily involved in the queer community, and this book plays heavily on those queer elements. So we see the AIDS crisis in full front. We see people out there protesting for queer rights. We see queer clubs as Barbalian starts to sort of love and accept himself. Listen, I've said it in this video itself, I don't like books about queer acceptance. However, this book is more than just about queer acceptance. This book is about queer rights. It's about queer equality. And it does so in a Black Hammer spinoff, which I never thought would happen. If it looks and sounds like I'm getting a little emotional, it is because I am. Because this book, as a queer woman who loves comic books and loves superheroes, this book hit me like a bag of bricks. And every panel, every little instance, every line of dialogue feels like it's written for somebody like me. It's written for us to be accepted and for us to be loved and cared about. And if you told me that a comic book published by Dark Horse, let alone a spin-off title from the Black Hammer universe, would hit me the way it does, I would have called you crazy. I'm still going to call you crazy. This is probably my favorite comic book to come out of anything in the past 10 years or so, and I think it's because it is deeply personal. Now, that being said, I know I've talked about it being a spin-off title from the Black Hammer universe. If you want to read queer media, if you want to consume queer content, if you just want to consume a really great, heartwarming book that will hit you like a bag of bricks, you should read Barbalian the Red Planet. Because if I'm being honest with you, it doesn't even talk about the rest of the Black Hammer universe. It really does kind of isolate Barbalian. It gives you a little bit of history on of Barbalian, and then it kind of just goes into its own thing, which is a book about queer rights and queer activism. And this book, we've got one more issue left on it, and I know it's gonna rip me into tiny, tiny pieces, but it's a comic that we desperately need right now. So I urge everybody, whether you like superheroes or not, because this is not a superhero book, I promise you. If you just want to read something good, something right, please pick up Barbalian the Red Planet. So 8 million years later, that is everything that is on my comic book pull list. And thankfully there are a couple series that are ending and that are wrapping up, and a couple of them that are only limited series, so they won't overstay their welcome. But God, am I in trouble. I have so many comics here, and this does not include all of the variants that I pick up. This does not include all of the covers that I pick up because I just like them for the cover. I am literally an insane, crazy person at this point that reads too many comics, and at this point I don't know what to do with myself, and I just need to be stopped. But I love comics so much. You should love comics so much, especially if you're here and you're on the channel. But this is everything that is on my comic book pull list. I really love doing these wrap-up videos. I just wish that I wasn't doing them as often as I was doing them. And that's just because my wallet is crying every time that I add something to my pull list. But 2021, man. Listen, we're only 2 months into it, and we are already getting some ridiculously amazing series that continue to grow and continue to shine, and honestly, it's only going to get better from here. Now, before I wrap things up, I want to make a small little announcement, and that is that I will be doing a fun little comics Q&A on this channel. I feel like I haven't done one in a while. It's been about a year since I did one when I hit my 100 subscribers, and I know I was going to wait for a little milestone. However, there's a lot of new faces here, and there's a lot of new people in the community that have found their way onto this channel, for which I say thank you. But I want to do another comic books Q&A. So leave me things in the comments below, what you want me to answer, whether it be fun comic book stuff, whether it be deeply personal comic questions, you name it, I'll answer it within reason. You can also DM me over on Twitter, or you can DM me over on my Instagram, both of which are at the end of the video, as always, with my cute little outro, because it is so cute. But that is it. That's everything for the video. Also, let me know what's on your comic book pull list. Are there any books that I missed? Are there any books that we're reading together that maybe we can cry about? I mean, if you're reading Barbalian, you should be DMing me and crying about it. Like, let's be honest here. But I'm gonna mosey on out of here. I gotta put away this fat stack. I will see you in the next video. Bye!